Hi, good afternoon. Happy whatever today is. It's Wednesday, but I hope you guys are staying dry and you're staying safe for this edition of the Heat Check. I'm John Devine. I'm the sports editor here at the Miami Herald, and with me is Anthony Chang, our insider, our beat writer, everything Heat. He's the man that we go to. First of all, we want to make sure everybody's safe. Hunker down. You can always listen to this after the storm is over if that's the case. We track how many people listen, so if I track and I see it's a little bit later in the week, that's fine. Hopefully, a whole lot does not change.
As long as you listen, right? That's what matters.
Exactly. Like I said, we're filming this on Wednesday, so Thursday there was supposed to be a second preseason game, but it was postponed a week. So all we're gonna have to go by is yesterday or Tuesday and the pink and white scrimmage.
Yeah.
But we do have some clues out there. First and foremost, Jimmy Butler actually played in a preseason game, which is kind of rare. How rare is that, Andy?
The first time in 2 years.
That qualifies.
Yeah, I think he played 2 preseason games 2 years ago, played 0 last year, and he played in the preseason opener this year, right? And it's a surprise, but not a surprise considering Pat Riley's message in the offseason of like, we need you to be more available. And I know Pat's talking about the regular season and the playoffs, but hey, why not start in the preseason, right? So you already saw a little bit of a different approach this year from the Heat with Jimmy, and from Jimmy himself, the fact that he played 15, 16 minutes in the preseason opener. And I'm guessing he'll play at least one more time, probably. He's not going to play in every game in the preseason, but maybe one or two more times to finish with 2 or 3 appearances in the preseason. So that's very notable, I think. Yes, again, it was limited minutes, but it was notable that he was out there.
Something interesting, and I think you posted it today. It's this Netflix series. And it talked about 2023 and what a rough year it was. And I guess if you want to talk about it, just how different we always forget, he can, suck it up and play. But the fact that there are so many things going on far beyond, whatever's going on the court, and and whether we think it affected his play. Clearly it should have. We understand if it did. But just goes to show so many different factors that can weigh in.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think we knew that he missed some time because of personal reasons, right? And everyone was like, what is it? What's going on? And then the statement came out that he was granted leave of absence last February, I believe it was, because of a death in his family. You watch a Netflix series, Starting Five, that came out on Wednesday. Very good, 10-part series. Follows Jimmy, Domantas Sabonis, LeBron James, Jason Tatum, and Anthony Edwards. And episode 5 and 6, it's about all 5 players, but a good portion of those episodes are dedicated to Jimmy and what he went through with his father. His father was living with him in Miami while he was battling this terminal illness that he ended up passing away from in February. Kind of just derailed everything for Jimmy. You saw he was visibly emotional if you watched those episodes, just discussing the loss of his father and what it meant to him, and how he basically said, I don't care about basketball. Like, I know I'm supposed to care, but I don't care. And it kind of really shows you some of the reason why, Jimmy maybe wasn't himself last year. He missed some time. Even when he was playing, there were some games he wasn't even really engaged. And not going to give him a pass completely, right? Some of it's just he's getting older. It is what it is. But there is something to be said. Like you said, these guys are human. They go through different things off the court that we don't know about. And this was a big thing. He was very close with his father. And to deal with that for the past 18 months and then to have him pass away in February, you could tell how much that took a toll on him.
Do you think people will look at him in a different light after seeing this?
I think so. I think it humanizes him a little bit. I really do, especially these episodes, and not just this, but just the whole series. But definitely these episodes, you kind of see him, and he says, "Look, like I said, he said, I'm human. Like, just because maybe I do something and people think I'm a bad guy, I'm not a bad guy. I'm human. We all go through our different stuff. We all go through different things that you don't see. Just like the fan is going through something that we don't know about. We all, we can get upset. We're frustrated. We're sad. We have different emotions. So I think this kind of opens up a door into kind of seeing a different side of Jimmy. Jimmy is very private. pretty, other than what you see on social media, other than that, like his personal life, he's pretty private. And he really kind of opened up in these episodes, just discussing how much this affected him.
I throw this out there. Considering his behavior in the past, and when I say that, trying to get out of Minnesota, trying to get out of these places,
yeah,
I offer that the Jimmy of 5 years ago may not have handled it as well. And I think we all held our breath going into this offseason. How's Jimmy going to, what's Jimmy going to do? Is he going to demand a trade? What's going on? And we come through here, and now even something as small as, hey, he's starting a preseason game. Could it be that looking at his whole priorities, he's like, you know what? I've seen what life and death is. What's really bad. This is a game. I'm going to get paid regardless.
I'm set for life. My kids are set for life. Yeah.
Exactly.
And he said he said as much. He said, look, I don't take anything for granted anymore. And that's not just basketball. That's life. That's relationships with friends, with family members, with his kids. Like, you just don't know what can be taken from you at any moment, right? So he talked about how it changed maybe his thinking on the court, off the court. And I think this year, like he said it, to go back to basketball, he said it on media day, I get what Pat is saying. We need to be more available. Right. I need to be more available. I'm the best player on the team. This team goes as I go. I need to be on the court. I need to be engaged. I need to be, like I said, on the court, but also playing like himself, not taking 2 shots in 3 quarters. He has to be aggressive. So I think he got the message, and I think the preseason opener was a good indication of that. Again, it's a long season. Things happen, right? So we'll see how it goes. But so far, so good.
Okay, so it was a preseason opener. We started. Who was the starting 5 for those who didn't see it, and how much do we think that's going to correlate to what the starting 5, the ideal starting 5 would be for the Heat?
I think we know what the starting 5 is going to be at this point. And I didn't know if we were going to be able to say that this early in the preseason. Tyler Hero was unavailable because of a strain growing, so he did not start in the preseason opener, but I'm pretty sure he's going to start on opening night if he's healthy. And I think the other 4 starters that began the preseason will also start on opening night. Terry Rozier. Last night was Terry Rozier, Alec Burks, which Alec Burks is kind of a placeholder for Tyler Hero, Jimmy Butler, Nikola Jovic, and Bam Adebayo. And Nikola Jovic might be the biggest, not surprise, but that was the one that we had questions of who's going to be the starting 4. Is it going to be Nikola Jovic? Is it going to be Haywood Highsmith? Are they going to start 2 bigs together? Could it go small and start Jaime Jaquez? It seems like Nikola Jovic, who ended the last season as a starting power forward, will be, at least to start the season, the starting power forward as well. So we saw that in the scrimmage, which, scrimmage isn't completely serious, but the fact that that lineup played together in that scrimmage and then open the preseason opener together, I think that's a good indication that that's going to be the starting group, at least to begin the season. And even the bench rotation. Yes, Tyler Hero was out, Jaime Jaquez was out, which those 2 will be in the rotation when healthy. Josh Richardson was out because of an injury or because he's rehabbing from his shoulder. He's a fringe rotation player. He might, will be one of those guys that's made in and out of the rotation throughout the season. But off the bench, the first 5 off the bench were Duncan Robinson, Haywood Highsmith, trying to think, Kevin Love, which those 3 will be in the bench rotation normally. And then you had Pelle Larsson and you had Drew Smith, which I think Pelle Larsson and Drew Smith, once Jaime Jaquez comes back, he's probably in the rotation. So I think we got a good look at maybe what the first 10 would look like, even just in that one preseason game, which I think is that's what Eric Spoelstra wants. He wants this preseason to be productive. He wants to play some of the main guys for some of these games.
Okay, in that group, you did not mention the first round pick. Do you see him in the rotation early?
It's a good catch by you. It's interesting. That was one of the biggest takeaways for me from that game was that Kevin Love was the first big off the bench. Again, not completely surprising because he's the veteran. He was very good in that backup center role last year. But yeah, they drafted a 7-footer. This team needs size. A 7-footer who could shoot and can block shots. But it seems like he might not be in the rotation right away. He didn't enter the game in the opener until late in the 3rd quarter. But once he got in, he played well. I think he blocked 4 shots. Hit a 3, had a couple dunks on rolls to the basket. So you definitely see the skill set, right? It's a very useful skill set. And I think eventually the Heat are going to need that this season. But to start the year, it seems like Kevin Love could be that first big off the bench again as Khalil continues to develop, learn the system. Remember, I mean, Eric Spoelstra does not like defensive glitches. If you don't know the defensive system, he will not play you. And if you're not in the right spot, he will not play you. So I think that's going to be the biggest thing for Khalil is just getting that system down, not blowing an assignment on defense, because that is the number one way to lose playing time with Eric Spoelstra is to blow an assignment on defense.
Is that part of the reason we hadn't seen Jovic earlier?
I think so, yeah. I mean, Jovic was a big part. That was a big thing for him, too. Early on, defensively, he was not good. He was fouling. You would get 3 or 4 fouls in like 5 minutes. And same thing with Ware yesterday. I think Ware had like 4 fouls in his first 7 or 8 minutes on the court. That's an issue, right? So you have to learn to play without fouling. You need to learn to defend without fouling. You need to be in the right spots. So I think it's going to take some time, but you clearly see there's a skill set there that the Heat desperately need in their rotation. So I think the Heat, one of the biggest things to watch this season for Heat is the development of Khalil Ware, because I think they'll need him. By the postseason, they're going to need him in certain matchups, especially if they play Boston again, which is very big, and you need rim protection, and Khalil gives that. So it's going to be important for the Heat that he develops fast.
Okay, so with the starting 5, you threw Jovic out there, you threw Bam out there, clearly.
Yeah.
I guess the question is spacing, and with spacing, is Bam? How does that work with Bam's newfound 3-point stroke that he's actually using now?
Bam didn't take 10 threes a game now, so spacing is not an issue. No, I don't know. Right. It seems like that based on the preseason. He had 5 threes, 2 or 5 on threes in the first. He only played the first half. In the scrimmage, again, not totally serious, but he took 11 threes in the scrimmage. So you see that he's clearly ready to make that a regular part of his game. Do I expect him to take 5 or 6 threes a game? No, I don't. But would I be surprised if he takes 2 to 3 a game this year? No, I think that's probably going to happen, which is pretty drastic change considering the first 3/4 of last season, he didn't take pretty much any threes. And then toward the final few weeks, he averaged, I think, of 3.5, like 1.5 3-point attempts per game. So I think we're going to see it become a more regular part of his game. He shoots it well, and it's important for the offense. You take away some of those long mid-range shots he takes, and you turn them into 3-pointers. That's a much more efficient shot chart. And that's what the Heat are looking to do this year. They're looking to take more threes, looking to take more shots at the rim, and Bam is going to have a big part in that because, again, you replace 2 or 3 of those long mid-rangers and you turn them into threes, all of a sudden your shot chart looks a lot different.
Okay, so Jovic can shoot the 3, right?
Yeah.
Okay, now you say Bam can shoot the 3.
Not elite 3-point shooters, though, right? Like you're saying. No. Yeah.
But just the willingness means that they have to go out and cover them, right?
Right.
Well, they prove that they can hit it.
That's going to be the biggest thing to watch is, yes, Bam's going to shoot more threes, but even last year, defenses weren't really going out there to contest. It's one thing to take threes, but in order to really be a floor spacer, you got to be able to draw defenses out to you, right? So this year, it's going to be interesting to watch how do defenses react to this new Bam.
Right.
Do they immediately go out there and guard him on the perimeter, or are they going to say, hey, go ahead, take those threes, we're fine with that? Now, obviously, if he makes enough of them the first month of the season, the scouting report will change, but it will be interesting, and that's a question that we need to wait to see what the answer is if defenses really respect that 3-point shot from Bam. Because, again, we can't call him a floor spacer until he actually spaces the floor, right?
Okay, but humor me here. Let's say we are December 1st. Let's say both of those guys are shooting 32 to 35% clip, which is enough to draw them out.
Yeah.
What if you're in Spo's brain? What does that do for you? Outside of it, because Jimmy can be efficient on the block.
Right.
Does it open the drives up? Does it open Jimmy on the block? What would you do if you get guys to come out and actually?
Yeah, it's huge because theoretically the biggest guys on the opposing team are guarding those two, right? So all of a sudden, if Bam is drawing a center out to the 3-point line, the help when Jimmy's driving is a lot smaller than before. So that's going to open up a lot in the paint, and that's what this team needs. Again, I don't know I don't know if 32 or 35% on threes is enough to do it. I don't. It might need to be 37, 38, which
Okay.
I know we're talking like a little bit here, but that makes a big difference. Um, but I think, yeah, Bam taking and making threes is going to be really important for this team because you're drawing out most nights the center to the perimeter. And that opens it up for guys like Tyler Hero, Terry Rozier, Jimmy Butler to make it a little easier to finish around the rim where instead Bam is, around the paint and that center is right there to contest the shot. So I think it is important that he does continue to take threes, but also he's going to have to make them too.
I think even if Bam's out there taking and making them, those small ball lineups aren't as painful
Right.
on offense. Because if you're drawing the only big out there, okay, at least you get to drive to the hole.
Yeah, I mean, and those usually small ball lineups are ones where you have 4 or 5 3-point shooters out there, right? And that hasn't been the case for the past few years because Bam and Jimmy really aren't 3-point shooters. But now Bam is going to be taking 3 a game, and Jimmy, he upped his 3-point volume even last year. If he continues that trend, he's taking 3 a game. Now between those two, Jovic, Terry, and Tyler, you have 5 guys who could shoot threes.
Right. And if we're going 10 deep, you're including Duncan Robinson,
Jaime Jaquez. Yeah. No, it's that. And one interesting thing, and Eric Spoelstra mentioned this after the scrimmage, every center on the roster can make threes. We saw that in the scrimmage last night in the first preseason game. Bam made a 3. I believe Kevin Love made a 3. Thomas Bryant made a 3, and Ware made a 3. All 4 centers in the roster made threes, which again is a little bit of a change from the style the Heat have used in the past. So all the bigs can shoot. And I think that's a big emphasis for this year's roster.
Okay. You mentioned a couple guys. Talk to me about the newcomers. I know we talked about Pelle Larsson. We talked about Khalil Ware. But tell me about some of these newcomers. Alec Burks.
Yeah.
What do you think they can bring to the table? And obviously with Spo's rotation can change depending on how they play. It's the ultimate meritocracy. You're playing well, I'm going to put you in.
Yeah.
But so it can adjust during the course of the year, but talk to us about what they can bring, because we always think about it was such a quiet offseason. Oh, no, they didn't do much. But I think the Heat is about as, what's a good way of putting it, as organized as possible for how they fit what kind of players in and what their roles will be.
For sure. They look for definitely specific type of players, and they use them in very specific roles, which is why I think they maximize a lot of guys, because they play to their strengths pretty much. They cater the role to them. And sometimes players I'll answer your question, but sometimes players get bothered and they say, I want to play this way. I don't want to be in this box.
Mm-hmm.
But the Heat kind of put you in a box and they say, no, this is what you do. Stick to this. And it works for them. But yeah, as far as newcomers, Pelle Larsson, we kind of mentioned him, but I think he deserves a little more time. He's been really impressive. And Eric Spoelstra after the scrimmage and after the first preseason game called him already. He hasn't even played one regular season NBA game. After getting picked by the Heat in the second round, he called him an elite role player, which some might say, oh, is that a compliment? For this team, for Eric Spoelstra to say that is a big compliment. And
so what would that role be?
I mean, it's a two-way guy who could knock down shots and doesn't need the ball in his hands to make an impact. He can defend. He can defend multiple positions, basically both guard spots, maybe a small 3. He's tough. He takes charges. We saw it in the summer league. He's a good shooter. You've seen it now in the scrimmage in this preseason game. Really good off-ball cutter. Just has really good instincts for that. He scored maybe 5 or 6 baskets just off cuts to the basket. So that was really impressive for a rookie. And again, he's one of these rookies that played, I think, 4 years in college. He's kind of like a Jaime Jaquez who has experience. You can tell he's a little more polished. I'm not saying he's going to play immediately because, if this team is healthy, they have 9 or 10 guys that probably deserve immediate playing time. But he's a guy to watch that could, at some point, be a player who earns a consistent playing time. And definitely if there are injuries, he's going to be one of the first out there probably to plug minutes. He's been really, really impressive. The fact that, again, he's good. He's a two-way player who doesn't need the ball to make an impact. As far as Alec Burks, you kind of know what you're getting from him, right? He's good outside shooter, bucket getter. That's why he plugged in Tyler Hero's role right in the starting lineup with Tyler Hero out. He's going to be that guy who, if Hero's missing time, if Rozier's missing time, Alec Burks can be the guy to help, fill the void with the points those guys are are leaving behind. And he's somebody like Josh Richardson, where I think they're going to be like that 10th, 9th, 10th man in the back end of the rotation, where it might be just come down to if you need offense, Alec Burks plays that night. If you need defense, Josh Richardson plays that night. So I think Alec Burks, he might not play every single night, every single game, but when there are injuries, he's going to be out there. And I think he's going to be one of those back end rotation guys that maybe depending on the matchup, depending on how he's playing, he's going to play a good amount.
Okay. And we already talked about where. So that's
Kashad Johnson. I mean, the summer league guys, we saw that lineup last night. It was kind of fun. The summer league lineup that won the Vegas championship. It was Isaiah Stevens, Kashad Johnson, Caleb Daniels, Josh Christopher, and Khalil Ware closed the game. They almost won it, but they ended up losing by 3 points. Ware missed a 3-pointer at the end, but the Heat feel like they've replenished their pipeline of like developmental guys. Right. We saw in summer league. I mean, that was a good summer league roster, and those 5 were 5 of the best on the team, including, and then you include Pelle Larsson, that's 6. And those guys all won't make the cut. Obviously, they'll, good amount of them will play in Sioux Falls, like Isaiah Stevens, Caleb Daniels, like they'll be in Sioux Falls, but you see the potential there. They are could be diamonds in the rough there, especially Kashad Johnson. Josh Christopher, who was a first-round pick a few years ago. There are some interesting names to watch there in the coming weeks, even after they're cut by the Heat, as they develop in Sioux Falls, and maybe they end up back on the Heat's roster later in the season.
It's not like they don't have a long history of finding guys
right.
in Sioux Falls.
Yeah, that's what they do, and they needed to replenish that pipeline. I think they did that this summer.
That's good. So, okay, so what is the rest of the preseason schedule look like? And what do you think their goals are to hit the ground running for the regular season?
Yeah, I think they're going to have these 2 days off because of the storm Wednesday, Thursday, but I believe they'll return to practice Friday, Saturday. They play their next preseason game on Sunday at 3:30 here in Miami. It'll be their first preseason game at home. Then they have a preseason back-to-back. How about that? On Tuesday and Wednesday at home, because that game was rescheduled to Wednesday. They play the Spurs Tuesday, Hawks on Wednesday, and they close the preseason in Memphis on Friday. And they have to make their roster cuts pretty much that Saturday. So that's Saturday, October 19th. They'll make their roster cuts for the regular season. I think you're going to see, we saw it last night in the first preseason game. I think you're going to see these main guys play more together this preseason. I think that's an obvious goal, something that Eric Spoelstra wants to continue to take more of a look at. And hopefully Tyler Hero, Hyman Hawkins can return to play in some of these preseason games. Especially, and I'm going to blow your mind here, John. The starting lineup that we think is going to open the season for the Heat: Tyler Hero, Terry Rozier, Jimmy Butler, Nikola Jovic, Bam Adebayo. They have not played a second together in a game yet.
My mind is not blown because I actually read your stories.
That's true.
They go out. And that's the only reason it wouldn't be.
They have not played a second because of all the injuries last year, and Terry Rozier got here in January. We would think, that lineup had to have played some together, even those 5-10 minutes. They have not played together at all. So I think one of the biggest goals, yes, they play together in practice, but one of the biggest goals will be get Tyler Hero back out there and let's play 10 minutes together in the preseason so we don't go into the regular season without ever logging a game minute together.
And you know what? They kind of had a slow start last year, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Maybe some of this continuity, and because they've been in the play in the last 2 years, if this continuity nets them an extra 2 or 3 wins in the season, and they can get out of that at the very least,
it makes a difference.
That's only helpful.
Yeah.
Which segues me to my final question, my final point, and that is every year they put out, the confidential GM conversations, where they think people should be rated, and the Heat did not do as well as they usually do. They got high marks, of course, for coaching. They are not convinced of the roster. I just spoke to continuity, and I'm sure that is going to net them some points. But we talk about how this isn't a new roster, but you just spoke about how these guys didn't play together. So there could be some upside there because we haven't seen them together yet. What do you think about that? Are they on base? Is it that's true until you prove it? Or do we think people are underestimating the Heat as usual?
I was surprised by the GM survey, not because I expected the Heat to be in the top four in the East in that survey, but usually just because it's the Heat and Eric Spoelstra as GMs voted as the best coach in the NBA, and Eric Spoelstra nearly swept the coaching categories again in that survey for the third straight year. You at least give them like sixth place or seventh place. For the Heat not to be in the top seven was really interesting to me. And I know people will point out the question is, it's not like to rank the East. The question in the survey is which team I think is the best in the East, or which team is going to win the Eastern Conference. And basically they go on a weighted system of like the teams that receive votes. So the fact that like the Indiana Pacers received the vote, it's kind of crazy, or like the Orlando Magic received the vote, but they did and the Heat didn't. So that says something. But I think the Heat are right in that, and we said it last episode. I think the Heat are right in that class of like Orlando, Indy, Cleveland. And I think the Heat could finish ahead of those teams and end up being like fourth or fifth in the East, maybe, if Milwaukee doesn't play up to expectations. But would I be shocked if the Heat finish eighth behind those teams if there's injuries and things don't go well? Not necessarily. So I was a little bit surprised they weren't at least in the top seven, just because it's the Heat and they have this track record and you kind of always know what you're going to get from them. And they have some continuity, like you said. But the East has gotten better. Boston is still probably the best team in the East. I mean, in the NBA, really. The Knicks are better. Sixers are better. The Bucks, 1 year into the Dame Giannis experiment, should be better. Orlando's added to their roster, and they're getting better with all their young players. Indiana made the Eastern Conference Finals last year. Cleveland still has Donovan Mitchell, and another young talent. So the East has gone better. The Heat, have they gone better? I don't know. Have they gotten worse? I don't think so, but I don't know if they've gone better. So it is going to be interesting, because I could see them finishing like fourth, but I could also see them finishing eighth and needing to qualify for the play-in again. So that's my long answer to that question.
I think Orlando is kind of interesting just because they may be the most freakishly athletic team.
Yeah.
That's partially because of their youth, of course, but they just have like freak athletes all over the place. Even a guy like Jonathan Isaac, who's probably at the end of their bench now, who can run and jump all over the place when healthy. Sometimes you cannot combat the fact that people are running and jump on a given night.
Yeah.
Still needs a
shot. Especially if you're an older team. It's like, yes. It's kind of, and their defense, and they're going to be great on defense again, especially after adding KCP, another really good perimeter defender. They had one of the best defenses in the NBA last season, and that's going to be the case again this year. They didn't win with offense. Their offense actually wasn't that good.
Right.
Their defense is elite, and it's going to be even better. It should be even better this year. So that first game of the regular season that the Heat have against the Magic in Miami, that is going to be a tough game, and probably an ugly game, like in the 90s, based on both those teams.
I think they both like that it's going to be.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. They're long. They're at their length, their arms, their height. They're all long.
They're athletic. Yeah.
Yeah. So it will be a good test for them.
Yeah. And they have good perimeter defenders. Suggs, now KCP, like good perimeter. So they have all the tools to really could be the best defense team in the NBA when it's all said and done this year.
It's nice to see the East being full of depth for a change. Because, like you go back 10 years, it was like the West. If you seeded the entire NBA, it felt like 1 through 10 was actually in the West. And then maybe you sprinkle an East team here or there. It feels a little bit more balanced there, which is good.
A little more balanced, yeah. The West is still, I think, deeper. I mean, look at that. I mean, the Lakers might not even make the playoffs this year.
Right.
It's the West is crazy deep, but the East is not far behind, especially after this offseason.
So I mentioned Orlando because, like I said, this storm is coming through. Yeah. For those 10, 15 people from Orlando who are watching us, we're not ripping the Magic now. We won't rip them at all because the storm could be coming through. Stay safe.
Yep.
For people here, there's still electricity. There's power outages. There's also all sorts of after effects and bans that can affect this area. Everybody stay safe. I'm John Devine, and we know who you are, don't we?
Yeah.
You can call your own name. I don't have to call your name all the time, Anthony.
I'm Anthony Chang.
And we will see you next week. And hopefully we'll have some more good news as we get closer and closer to the season. And stay tuned.
Yeah, we'll have more games to talk. We'll have more games to talk about next week, so it should be fun.
Absolutely. Okay, and see you until next time.
Yeah, everybody.